Good evening, this is Jack from Charting Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Sunday, the 5th of October. My disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right. Okay, let's have a look at ES. ES, this is after the opening tonight, of course. We had a bit of a decline on Friday afternoon. Half of that has come back. We're still on the 60-minute sell signal, and that still hasn't reached the possible near miss target. NQ had a bit of a decline too. We actually had a little level top that broke down here with a target in about the 24,790 area, I think. So hang on, let's give you an exact number on that. All right, 24,780. So might go a little lower, but we've already come back more than half of that. So maybe not. Looking at the others, not a huge amount. I mean, obviously, we've got some nice looking topping patterns here. Doesn't look like a double top anymore on ES. It's gone a little high for that. NQ could still be a double top. RTY could very much still be a double top. And YM could be a double top too, or a platform head and shoulders. No sell signals apart from ES on the US indices. On DAX, we've got a weak 60-minute sell signal fixed. That had a very strong week last week. We're just giving back a bit of that. We haven't reached the possible near miss target on that either. And ESTX, no signal, looks quite a lot like a bull flag. Now, in terms of the stats for next week, on Monday, mildly bullish. On Tuesday, about 61% bearish. And then we're neutral to bearish on Wednesday. And on Thursday, 61% bullish, and then mildly bearish on Friday. So basically, it's a neutral week, with the weakest part of the week going through to about Wednesday afternoon. We'll see. Am I seeing anything compelling here suggesting we're about to go down? No. All right, let's have a look at ES. We've got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing, same on SPX. On Qs, we've actually got an RSI 14 sell signal brewing and an RSI 5 sell signal brewing. So actually, we've got a fair amount of negative divergence here. I am thinking we might see a decent retracement soon. On Dia, we've still got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and even though we had a pretty strong week last week, that's nowhere near failing. Looking at IWM, bear with me a moment. IWM, we've still got a weak RSI 14 sell signal fixed. And again, we had a strong week. And again, we came fairly close to it, failing actually at this point. But really not particularly. So there's quite a lot of interesting negative divergence, but at the moment, nothing compelling saying it's about to turn. Looking at the shorter term charts, looking at the hourly charts, no current divergence, but if we were to retest the high, we could start setting up some hourly RSI 14 sell signals, which would be more interesting. On the 15-minute chart, as I said, it's looking a little extended for a little top here. Could be a path formed head and shoulders. We've got an RSI 14 sell signal on the 15-minute, but it's already reached the possible near miss target. Looking at the Qs, no divergence on the hourly. 15-minute, we had an RSI 14 sell signal fix, but that's already made target. We had here, did we have a double top that broke down? Yes, we did. And again, like the NQ one, it's still well short of target. I think the target here would be in about the 598 to 599 area. Looking at Dia, no current negative divergence. Again, if we retested the high, we could set up some decent RSI 14 divergence on the hourly chart. On the 15-minute chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fix, suggesting we've got a little further to go down. All right, looking at the IWM chart again. On the hourly chart, no current negative divergence, but retest the high, we can set up some nice negative divergence on the RSI 14. 15-minute, no divergence, so just pulling back a bit. But it wasn't really a big decline there. That was just, it was just a decline after a fairly strong day up. You often see those. In terms of DAX, we've now come up far enough that we're probably heading back to the retest of the all-time high at 24.6. Although we haven't actually just draw a couple of lines in here. I don't think we've broken over the declining resistance yet. Oh no, we're a bit through it. So I'll leave that on. Hang on. So this could be a flag breaking up. This would be the support on it. Not awesome, but not bad. That would be the flag, and we'd be breaking up from it. I'm thinking we're probably going to be testing the 24.6K sooner rather than later. In the short term, though, I would say, and I think I'm probably going to include these on it. I've added them 3 times over the last week, but we don't actually often get to the stage where we're testing the 3SD bands. But here, hang on, -6, -thick, and red. Okay, looking at the 3SD upper band, this tends to be this is a stage where I'll tend to look for some retracement. We and at the high on Friday was at 24,524, and the 3SD upper band closed at 24,565. So significantly above it, but we actually closed on the day before. Normally, I'd be expecting to see, and if this was on SPX, I'd be expecting to see really an immediate reaction when we saw what we did on Thursday, which was a close basically slightly above the 3SD upper band. I'm thinking we a bit of a retracement here, and then we probably go and do a retest of the all-time high. On Nikkei, we saw a nice move up. They've actually picked their new government. That might have an impact, but really here we had an RSI 5 sell signal fixed on the daily. I was saying that we might well find resistance when we got to this trend line here. We did, and then we saw a retrace to the middle band, and then it's come up clearly from that. Obviously, still not that far away from this resistance trend line I drew, but that certainly was a very acceptable looking retracement. All right, let's have a look at the currencies. Okay, DX. DX, we had a head and shoulders that broke down here and it's failed. This would generally leave me, because we had a nice looking setup here. We had some support on the other currencies suggesting this might see it go down here and see a retest at low, and it just didn't do it. So what could we be doing as an alternative here? Well, we could be forming an IHS right shoulder. And actually, it wouldn't be a bad IHS except for the fact it looks a little oversized. But really, head and shoulders broke down, failed. What I'm looking for is a retest of this high. So I'm expecting to see that probably sooner rather than later. I'll just go through the other currency pairs. They're a bit of a mixed bag. Looks like we're forming a possible head and shoulders here to go down here on the euro, and that's a good fit with what we're seeing, what I was talking about just now on DX. On GBP, it looks like we're forming an IHS to go up. Hasn't broken up yet, but obviously that would be in the opposite direction to the one I'm expecting USD JPY to go in. USD index to go in. USD JPY, yen is well up today, and I think that's because they've chosen a government. So no current negative divergence. No particular reason to think this is about to come down, but this is a reaction on news, so hard to say where it's going to finish. I've got more to say about these on the bigger picture charts. USD CAD could well be topping out here, but may just continue higher if the dollar's going higher, which it looks as though it will. We've got an IHS forming here, which again would be counter trend. I mean, as I said, these are a bit of a mixed bag. This could be setting up a bear flag. Looks very like a bear flag, actually. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Okay, looking at the US dollar. On the bigger picture, obviously, we're still in the big inflection point. We've got a very nice looking bull flag here, and this overall setup has me wondering about a retest of this high here at 11478. We've got a nice looking little level bottom that's formed here. We've got positive diversions, possible RSI 5 buy signal brewing on the monthly. On the weekly, we've got a weak RSI 14 buy signal fix. We've got an RSI 5 buy signal fix. Neither of those is anywhere near the target. And on the daily chart, we have a very nice looking potential level bottom here. See a sustained break up over 100.26. And I've drawn in a possible alternate larger inverted head and shoulder neckline here, but really, break over this level here, I'd be looking for a move back to 104, 105, and at that stage, we would be getting a serious rally going and might start be able to think about a further move up into a retest of the high at 114.78. Do we have any big resistance levels to get through? Yes. And this is another reason why I'm watching that potential inverted head and shoulder neckline, which is in the 102 area, and that's because we've got the monthly middle band, which does tend to be a pretty good support and resistance level, and I've got that at 102.77. And I've got the 50-month moving average in the same sort of area. On the weekly chart, we're testing it now, and you can see we've spent the last few weeks just under the week to middle band. So that needs to break up, and I've got that at 98.07. Okay, looking at the others, obviously, if we are going to see a retest of the high, then we've got corresponding bear flag here on the euro, and we've got a corresponding bear flag here again on GBP. So we could well see these move back to retest the low as these big lows as the dollar is retesting the high, and I'd be expecting that high on the dollar to be the second high of a double top, and actually we've broken slightly below this rising support, which is ideal. Really, that's a breakdown, retest the high, and go. It's a very classical topping sequence, and obviously on the euro and GBP we can see retest the low to set up double bottoms. In terms of the short term, looks a little confusing. Got a potential level top here, which would, and if we continue down, this is the matching double top here that would match the one on the dollar, which could get the dollar up to 104 area. This would get the euro down basically into the 108.5 and 10 to 109.3 area. GBP USD, nothing as clear as that. Not really seeing an obvious pattern forming here unless it is a bull flag, which would be a possibility. USD JPY, this ultimately, this pattern is suggesting a big move down on the dollar, but there's nothing to suggest that we can't go back and retest this high first. We've been testing the monthly middle band as resistance for a while. If we see a sustained break up over 150, I'd be thinking we had a serious chance of retesting that high. This does tend to plow its own furrow, though. So this doesn't really correspond closely to what we're seeing on the DX chart, and this is positively correlated with the dollar. So if the dollar goes up, this would tend to go up with it. Looking at USD CAD, we've got a potential very large double top here. But again, if the dollar is going to see a big rally here, that would tend to push the Canadian dollar up. On the Australian dollar has actually been in this long decline, and we're breaking slightly up over the declining resistance. Now, that doesn't fit enormously well with the dollar going up, but we could see a move lower, set up a potential level bottom with a retest of 0.551, and actually breaking up over the resistance trend line doesn't mean that we're going to break up immediately. It just puts us in a bottoming process, and we don't really have an obvious reversal pattern here. A retest of the low would actually change that. In terms of NZ USD, we've been in this very long consolidation from the 2020 high, and well, actually early 2021 high, I think. And this basically is compression, a triangle really, and I'm leaning towards this breaking up. With this need to break up immediately, and if the dollar sees a big rally, we'd probably see this come down a bit, but I have to say this isn't part of the dollar index and goes more with commodities as the Australian dollar does too. All right, great. Let's have a look at oil. No, sorry, bonds. Okay, let's have a look at ZB. Right, on ZB, we've got a double bottom that's broken up here, but I am wondering if this is failing, and we're going to go head back to the low here, and we do have still a double top which is broken down with the target, which the first target was reached. We've seen a bit of a rally here, kind of looked like a flag, but not a particularly decent quality one. We do have a lower target down here at 115.10. And I think we might be heading towards that. ZN, we've got a very nice looking inverted head and shoulders here, and actually we're at the ideal right shoulder low now. This may turn back up and deliver the high retest that I was thinking we'd probably see on both ZN here and on ZB. We will see, but at the moment, the ZB short-term action doesn't look particularly encouraging. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on that. And on TYX, on the daily chart, the RSI 5 buy signal reached the possible near miss target. I am wondering about a retest of the low here, which would correspond with the retest of the high on ZB and ZN. So I'm thinking we may well go to that. This is the 30-year yield, of course. Looking at TNX, on the weekly chart, we break slightly below this support trend line here. And we saw a move down to this low here. And again, I'm wondering whether that's going to be retested. We're just about holding on to the daily middle band here. If we go much lower, then it'll set up that low retest. And that, of course, would be the high retest that I'm looking at on ZB and ZN. Looking at TLT. TLT, RSI 5 sell signals. We had a series of daily sell signals here, and they all made target. I'm wondering about ZB retesting this high. It's holding the daily middle band here like a champ. So if it continues to, although it's been holding worryingly close to, break down here, and we could see another leg down, and I'd be leaning towards this being a bull flag forming. Continue up, and we'll go to the retest of this high directly. Could this be a double bottom that I've drawn in here? No, it's oversized, but it's still an interesting resistance level. In terms of the 60-minute chart, we've got an RSI 14 buy signal, but it's reached the possible near miss target. We've got no current signals here. But if we are forming a topping pattern here for bonds to go down, as I'm thinking they might well, then a retest of the high would be the obvious next move. Okay, let's have a look at CL. Now, CL, we've had a very hard week here. Now, so one thing I commented was that we had a range of 61 to 65.5. We broke over it by a buck and then immediately rejected very hard, and then basically got below the level by almost a buck by getting down to about 60.35. We're rallying a bit from there. We had a 60-minute buy signal fixed for much of last week, and that's now reached the possible near miss target overnight tonight. HO hasn't quite reached it, but it's getting pretty close. Our Bob, again, hasn't reached the target yet, but I'm thinking we've probably got a bit more rally. These might just be bear flags forming. I am thinking this might go lower. Now, we've got two big things happening on oil at the moment. One is that there's a pretty good technical argument for seeing a retest of some big lows. Our Bob, we actually saw that big low retested this week. So that's already done. I'll talk about those on the daily chart. Let's just do natural gas quickly first. But the other thing I was going to say was that with the last two moves from OPEC have been Trump telling them to produce more oil to reduce the price. And I have to say, even though that's not really in their interest to do that, they've actually been pretty good about doing that. But they're apparently pretty close to an agreement to cut production again. With a view to raising the price. And obviously, that's going to be pretty bullish for the oil price. I'll talk about that on the bigger picture. But in terms of NG, where I'm thinking we might see a significant rally, we've seen a double bottom. It's broken up. We've got a target in the 380 to 383 area. And I quite like it for that. Now, we've seen a bit of a pullback here. That's not unusual. Kind of looks like a bull flag. I'm quite leaning towards this because we've got a strong seasonal lean for this to go up about a buck over the next couple of months. So it seems an obvious thing to go up and do that. After that 2 months, then it'll be on a downward drift again. And frankly, I can see that too. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. And right, looking at oil. On the bigger picture, I've been promising a post about this. I'm hoping to get one done next week. I've just had a lot on, but we've got a falling wedge here, and it's broken up. And I'm looking for a reversal pattern, and that is the same on WTIC, and which is the CL equivalent. HO, heating oil, we've got pretty much exactly the same pattern, and gas oil, we've got pretty much exactly the same pattern. These are all bullish. These are all clearly bullish patterns. Now, I've been looking for the reversal pattern to form, and here we've got potential inverted head and shoulders. Sorry, it's a little messy, but inverted head and shoulders here. And this could be an IHS, and it could be that we go up directly from here. And if we did, it wouldn't be a bad inverted head and shoulders, and a sustained break over 77.5 would get us back into the 101 area. Is that doable? I don't know, not necessarily without another war. Peace seems to be breaking out at the moment. But really, by historical standards, well, by recent historical standards, this is currently pretty low. These were, the pandemic lows were lows that we would not really normally ever see. And actually, much of the world's oil isn't actually really profitable to get out of the ground. Under $50 or $55. I am thinking we may well come back and retest this low at 56.06, but maybe we could do the IHS because we've got three patterns here, and we've got a possible IHS here, and we've got a possible IHS here. And I've been saying that these are very much on the cards, but the reason I was thinking we might see a retest of the low was because of the gas oil chart. Now, the gas oil chart, I said, was not a potential inverted head and shoulders, and I was saying that was a very obvious bear flag. And so I was saying that at the very minimum, I was expecting this to retest the low, but actually we did that last week. And we still have very decent looking inverted head and shoulder patterns on HO and CL. And while it may be hard to imagine, just because we've been down for quite a while now, that oil might be about to start a big move up, I'm just warning you, it's very possible here. And this could be the start of a move that could get us back into the 100 area. Pros and cons for that. Pros are if OPEC is actually starting to get serious about getting the price back into a reasonable range, then they can cut production, and that will raise production. Other point, though, is that the world economy is not in the most awesome shape. The tariff wars have not been particularly kind to it, and if demand is weak, then that tends to weaken demand for oil as well. So there's arguments on both sides. But I've got to say, like the US dollar chart, this is a clearly bullish setup. This is suggesting we're unlikely to get below 50 on the WTIC, and that if we do retest the low here, then the obvious thing that it will look like is the second low of a double bottom that could get us back over 100. And 100 is not a ridiculous price. We were there in 22. We reached 126.42. We weren't there long, but it's not an unreasonable price to be over 100. We've spent quite long periods over 100 over the last 20 years. We will see how that goes. I've got more to say about this, but I'm planning to say it in the post, so I'll plan to do that there. Looking at natural gas. Natural gas on the monthly chart, we've got a double bottom here, which looks as though it is failing. It isn't necessarily failing, and if it doesn't fail, then I've got targets up here at about the 5.8 to 6.2 area, but I think it's probably failing. On the monthly chart, though, you can see we have been holding the monthly middle band and closing above it every month. We've got a seasonal long period here. I've got, in terms of patterns, I don't really have any buy signals here. Nothing on the monthly, nothing on the weekly. We had a buy signal back here, but we haven't had anything recently on the daily chart. But we are breaking over this declining resistance, and I am thinking we might be heading back up into a retest of this high here in the 4.59 area. And really, where currently the futures are projecting that, not the easiest one to trade because it's already pressed into the futures, but the futures are projecting that in a couple of months, hang on, let's get me the exact numbers. All right. Basically, the peak is NG February, so basically up and sometime in it's NG January. So basically, sometime in December, these futures are suggesting that we'll reach 4.4, which is pretty close to 4.6. I think it's got a pretty good chance of doing that. I am also thinking that we're probably going to come down afterwards, but we will have a better idea when we get there. But we do have an opportunity there to resume this double bottom setup, which was a nice double bottom setup, and potentially get back into the 5.6 to 6.2 area. However, as I was saying on oil, we've got a situation where if we've got declining demand, then weaker demand, then that tends to affect the price. Although, unlike oil, by historical standards, we're not actually hugely far off the lows. You can see we've spent quite long periods at much, much higher prices. although not so much recently, obviously. So we will see how that goes. But I'll be keeping that in mind. This could potentially be a bull flag forming, although not a particularly high quality one. All right, great. Let's have a look at gold. Right, gold. We've got a nice looking rising wedge here, and I'm watching it with interest. On the last move down, we didn't make it back to the wedge support. And at the moment, we are pretty close to the wedge resistance, which I've got currently in about the 39.60 area, I think. Watching that with interest. This is actually a pretty nice trend line. It's 1, 2, 3. That's pretty nice. It's slightly weakened by the fact we didn't get back to the support trend line. But I am wondering about a possible little retracement coming soon, but I have reservations because on silver, when we got over the, when basically we broke up through this area here, a clear break over 40 and a sustained break over 40, I said the next obvious target was a retest of the all-time high at 49.51. Since then, we've got up to almost 48, well, maybe up to about 48.35, I think. That's pretty close to the retest of the high. I'm thinking that it may actually go there before it does any kind of decent retracement. We'll see. We've got a potential double top here. I'm keeping the possibility open. Would I put a penny on this short? No. Right, palladium. I've been watching a couple of bull flags that are forming, and encouragingly for this one, the platinum one has actually already broken up and made the full target at the retest of the prior high. Palladium may well do the same. It's a nice looking flag, and I'm thinking it hasn't broken up yet. I'm thinking it may well break up and retest this high, which is in the 13.37 area. Platinum has already done it. We've got a little 60-minute sell signal is fixed, but I would say with the precious metals, we've been going through a lot of sell signals lately. And actually, on silver, we lost this one here, but we haven't so much lost them on gold on this chart, but actually looking at the bigger picture charts, we've lost quite a lot. Now, HG, we were forming what looked like about a bear flag here, but we've actually broken up and formed what looks an awful lot like a smaller rising wedge coming from a breakup from this initial one. Now, this is a 60-minute sell signal that's fixed. Sorry, I haven't marked it in, but this has basically been happening overnight. If we fail here, then I'm thinking we maybe start the road back to the retest of this low. I've been saying it should ultimately resolve into a retest of this low here in the 4.38 area, that low. So at the moment, it looks like we're on the way there. And we've now got a 60-minute sell signal fix that at least could help it get started. We'll see how that goes. We have actually retraced almost 50% of this move from high to low. That might be enough. We shall see. It's a nice looking wedge. We'll see how it progresses. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts. Looking at the much bigger picture, we're not close to any of my major resistance trend lines, and I'm not seeing that we've got a particularly good case for gold turning around here directly in a big way. What I would say also is that we're at risk. We've lost already the negative divergence we had on the monthly RSI 14. We're pretty close to losing on the RSI 5. On the weekly chart, we've still got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing. We've now lost 2 in a row RSI, although in the meantime we had one go down to the 30 level without a signal. We've lost the last 2 RSI 5 sell signals. This has been a pretty strong move. You can see looking back that we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these all make target in a row. This is a strong move up, and obviously you can see that in the price. This has basically been a continuous move from 1809 up to the 40 area. That's it's almost double to the current move in 4,000 in basically 2 years. But 2 years from 1613, and it's a really strong move. Would I be keen to get in front of this? No. Is it going through quite a lot of sell signals? Yes. We've also got a weak RSI 5 sell signal here, which actually has got a full-size one brewing now. We lost divergence on the daily RSI 14. We could lose this too. I've seen some amazing runs on silver, particularly in the past, which have just gone through everything. And with the RSI, basically, I mean, there was one on the daily RSI for a period where silver was just basically living between 70 and 90 for like a year or something. This could go further, and I wouldn't be keen to be short on gold at the moment here. Looking at silver, silver is looking kind of overbought, but reference my last comments. So in terms of here, we don't have that kind of period here, but at the moment we've got no negative divergence at all on the monthly chart. We've got no negative divergence at all on the weekly chart, and we're now getting pretty close to the obvious retest of the high at 49.51. Now that is an all-time high on silver, and it was only a few ticks higher than the previous all-time high that was made back in about 1980. So this is a huge resistance level. I think we're going to test it, and I think we might well see a breakthrough. On the daily chart, I've got a little bit of negative divergence. Honestly, I was wondering whether to include it, but I needed to just to show it was there. But this isn't the kind of thing that inspires a lot of confidence. The last two daily sell signals on silver, you can see both failed. The last RSI 5 sell signal failed too. This is not inspiring stuff. This is a strong trend up. So we will see how this develops, but I'm really thinking the closer we get to 49.51, the more likely it is that we're going to hit that in the short term. Like looking at palladium, nothing to see on the monthly chart, on the weekly chart. On the weekly chart, I think we're probably heading back into a retest of this high here at 1373, and I'm thinking we could head up towards this trend line here, which I've got in the 1480 area, and is a pretty decent looking trend line. Yeah, although only 2 touches, but it is the obvious trend line. We will see how that develops, but at the moment we're holding the weekly middle band very well. On the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, but it's not been delivering anything so far, and we're now getting pretty close to the retest of the high, and I think that's the obvious target. Could that be the second high of a double top? Yes, a little oversized, but not unduly so. And if this pattern is right, then the obvious read is it's a bear flag. Don't know how that fits, but palladium is mainly an industrial metal, as platinum is, of course, as well. But platinum does look rather as though it's broken up. This was the obvious flag setup. We've gone through it. This does not look like a bearish overthrow. It does look like an IHS which has broken up with the target basically at a retest of this high here at 2290. No negative divergence on the monthly chart. Some negative divergence, but if we keep going up, we could lose that. We've got a possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing, but you can see how high how close the second high is getting to the first high, and even more so on the RSI 5. We could lose both of these divergences if it goes up another $100. We will see. But it wouldn't surprise me if we lost both of those divergences. This has been, again, a very strong move up. That's on the weekly chart. On the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed. And if we didn't already have one, when we retest this high here at 1631, we'll get a new sell signal brewing on the RSI 14 and a possible one on the RSI 5. But there are only potentials until we actually see some kind of significant reversal. All right, looking at copper. Copper, we've seen a decent move up, more than I expected. I am thinking we've got some resistance here, and we've got the wedge, and I'm watching that, where this sort of zone here between about 5 and 520 really, is the obvious area for big move down, rally, start the next big move down. So I'm thinking, well, I'm leaning to the short side there. In terms of GDX, we've got possible RSI 14 sell signal brewing, got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed, but look at this very, very, very strong RSI with, of course, a very, very strong price. And again, start of 2025, basically this was at what, $34? It's now at 78. Hell of a move. Don't get in front of it. So we're going to see a harsh retracement here at some point. There's not an awful lot suggesting that's going to be now. We are seeing potential short-term topping action. I do have hourly RSI 14 sell signals fixed, but the other one, look at the last one, how long that took to make target, and how much higher it was than when it fixed down here. If the sell signal fixed here and it made target about here, this has not been a comfortable instrument to be short. We've got almost exactly the same setup on GDXJ, and then here, of course, it's gone from basically in 2025, it's gone from 41.85 to 101. This is a hell of a move. I mean, a price that is trending like this, it's like a trend day. You get all sorts of setups that form, but a counter trend setup in a trend day usually fails. Signals fail, setups fail, head and shoulders fail, double tops fail. And basically, the move needs to play out until it reaches an area where it can sort of, come down to normal speed. And at that stage, a two-way market starts again. This is not a two-way market. Looking at the hourly chart again, I've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed here. Is it an awful setup for retracement? No. Would I ever be short this item looking at this kind of chart? No. All right, let's have a look at the other commodities. So let's have a look at KC. KC, I've got an IHS that broke up here and then immediately failed. Could this be an alternate IHS? Not really. This could go up and retest the high anyway, but normally I'd be looking for a retest this low here in the 350 area. Looking at SB, I've got a very nice bottoming setup here. We've got an IHS which broke down, and despite this sharp retracement here, is still intact. That has a target up in about the 16.9 area, and then I've got a larger double bottom in about the 16.82 area, and I've got a larger double bottom resistance in about the 16.86 area. This is one of the ones I've been saying could see a very, very sustained move up, and I'm thinking that may well be in progress at the moment. See, Cocoa, we had a very nice looking falling wedge here. We had a lovely support trend line, and it's broken down from it, and this does not look like bullish underthrow. I think this is heading down, and we've actually broken some big. One reason I was thinking we'd probably see a bounce here, and at least a decent rally, was because we were hitting some big support on the bigger picture charts, and we broke it. So I'll run through those on the bigger picture charts, but this is looking pretty bearish. And these are still at very rich levels by historical standards. If we're doing a reversion to the mean, it could go a lot lower than this. All right, CT. CT. Bit of a rally here. I am thinking this might go significantly more. I've got more to say about this on the bigger picture chart. On lumber, we've still got a double bottom here, which is broken up with a minimum target in about the 622 area. We haven't reached it yet, although we got pretty close. We do have a 60-minute sell signal fixed. Bigger picture, I've got this breaking down for a double top, and the rally's really gone further than I expected. Although that rally looks a lot bigger on the bigger picture chart. Looking at ZW, ZW, I'm thinking we may well be bottoming out here. On corn, this looks like a bull flag. I was having some doubts as we got down to this level here, but it still looks like a bull flag. We haven't made it up to flag resistance, but the ultimate target should be a retest of the high here at about the 432 area. On soy, this is actually left shoulder, head, right shoulder. This is a break up from a decent looking IHS with a target in about the 1046 area, 1047 maybe. But basically, this falling megaphone resistance, which I'm thinking might break up and deliver a retest of this high here in the 1061 area. Short term, we got a 60-minute sell signal fixed, and we've been seeing a bit of a retrace. If we get down below this level here, which is in about the 1008, 1009 area, then at that stage the IHS would fail. But until then, I'm quite liking this target upwards. ZL looks like a bear flag forming. Live cattle, broke my nice triangle support trend line, but it still looks like a bullish consolidation. Ultimately, this should result in a retest of this high here in the 242.5 area. Looking at lean hogs, we've broken down for a double top with a target down in about the 85 down to about 84.3 area. I'm still leaning towards seeing that. Actually, 84.25 to 85 area, I've got that in. Is that right? Looks a little lower than that, actually. So I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that another time, but lower than it's gone at the moment. This kind of looks like a bear flag. I'm leaning towards it heading down and making that target, and then we see what happens. What I would say is this rising megaphone that I've been watching for a couple of months now has broken down. And I'm interested to see whether we'll see a follow through to that, and I'm thinking we might well. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And coffee. Coffee, I would love to see a retest of the high. That could set up a very nice looking level top, slightly oversized, but bigger picture, you can see that coffee is massively outside its comfort zone historically. We were trading a long time. I've got a monthly chart I could show you, but really just take my word for it. Natural prices for coffee have been awful lot lower than this. I think we're topping out, and we're probably going to come down and start reversing to the mean seriously, as I'm thinking we may well be doing on cocoa. Looking at the daily chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, but we are back above the daily middle band. I'd quite like to see some high retests, either a retest of this high to set up a shorter term double top, or a retest of this full high here in the 4.41 area to set up a larger double top. But I'm quite liking that, and I'm thinking there's a decent chance we're going to see that. Looking at sugar, there is a kind of an apocalyptic head and shoulders breaking down towards the 6.5 to 9 area, but I'm liking short term the prospects for a move up. I would say on the monthly chart it would be improved by another retest of the low, which could set up some positive divergence on the RSI 5. On the weekly chart, we've already got an RSI 5 buy signal fixed, and we've got a nice looking falling wedge from the high. And we've got a very nice looking double bottom here. Sustained break up over 1705. We'd see us with a target in about the 19 area, i.e. over this wedge resistance. I'm liking the upside on this, and I'm not seeing anything to contradict it at the moment. Looking at the daily chart, weak RSI 14 buy signal hasn't quite made target. No negative divergence on the RSI 5. You can see we've got a nice looking, and I've shown you this on obviously the 3-month chart, hourly chart already. We've got this resistance in the 17.05 area. It's nice. I'm thinking it's got a decent shot. All right, cocoa. Cocoa, this was the big support that I was talking about at 647, and we broke through it last week. Now, could this be a double top? It is too large. Maybe, just maybe, we can make it to the bottom of this area here. But I've got to say, even though this was a long price range here, this was really towards the bottom of it. So I'm skeptical about it getting as low as this. In terms of getting back down under the 3,800 high, yeah, I think that's very much on the cards. We could see a lot more downside on cocoa. Short term, we have no positive divergence, and we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed here. These can sometimes take a long time to make target, but they often do make target. So I'm taking this one seriously. Looking at the daily chart, no current divergence. Looking rather oversold on the, we're down under 10 on the daily RSI 5, but you can see we had a nice looking wedge here, and this is a hard break below it. I'm thinking this may well follow through to the downside. Looking at wheat, I'm quite liking the bullish setup here, actually, although not encouragingly, this double bottom that's broken up looks as though it might be failing. We will see how that goes. But if we see another retest this low, that would set up a nice looking short-term double bottom. And of course, we've got a large. I was talking for ages about seeing a retest this low here at 495.5, and we went slightly below it and reached 495. This is a really nice looking potential double bottom that on a sustained break up over about 617 could take us directly back into a retest of this high, and I like it. I think this has a lot of prospects for upside. On corn, I'm liking the upside too. We have not broken up over this wedge resistance yet, but we've got a very nice looking double bottom. If we can get over this wedge resistance, then and keep going up, I like it. And on the weekly chart, we're holding the weekly middle band as support very nicely. On the daily chart, we're holding the middle band there too after a bit of a shaky last couple of days. This is an IHS which has broken up with a target in the 445 area, but I'm thinking we may be forming a larger IHS which would break up with a target considerably higher in about the 490, 495 area. That is looking good. Now, soybeans. Soybeans is different. This looks like a bear flag. Now we could go up higher within the bear flag, but this has been looking like a bear flag for quite a while, and it still looks like a bear flag. Ultimately, I think this is going to resolve downwards into a retest this low here at 936.06. Looking at cotton, wondering about another retest this low at 557.89. Really, I'd like to see this go straight up. Because we've got a lovely looking double bottom here already with resistance in the 73 73.70 area. I'd like to see that break up directly, and that could give us a really nice move. We could set up a smaller double bottom with another retest of the low. We will see how that goes. Looking at lumber, this looks like an overall bear flag, and within that bear flag, we've actually got a double top, which is broken down here with a target pretty close to a retest of the low. I'm leaning towards it seeing that. We're testing the weekly middle band at the moment. I've got that at 611. We close at 615. If that holds as resistance and we don't see a sustained break above it, then I'm liking the downside here. In the short term, I would say we've come up basically 103 from the lows, and we are 78 from the highs. So that's about at 61.8. This would be a good time to turn down. Do I have any negative divergence? No, and we haven't actually quite reached target on the RSI 14 buy signal. I'm thinking we could kick around, go a little higher here, but I'm looking for some negative divergence form in the RSI 5, and for the daily chart to reach the possible near miss target, which it's almost reached already. It just needs to go up another RSI point or two. We shall see. All right, just to finish off, let's have a look at crypto. Now, on Wednesday, I was saying I thought this was likely going to be resolving into a retest of the all-time high, and here we are. This is a retest of the all-time high. This could be setting up a double top, but I'm thinking probably not. We shall see. On the daily chart, we've got no negative divergence. We are back at the 70 level on the RSI 14 and starting to look pretty overbought on the RSI 5. No negative divergence, though, nothing compelling saying we're about to turn. On the hourly chart, we've actually had an RSI 14 sell signal for a while. Hasn't made target yet. At some stage it will. Doesn't necessarily need to be here, but you often, when you reach a key level, see a bit of a retracement start there. We could see that here. On Solana, no current negative divergence. We've broken back above the daily middle band. We've consolidated above it. We've back tested it. Obvious movers up. We never made it to my main support trend line here, so that puts my resistance trend line in more doubt, which might be a good thing actually, because even though it's a nice trend line and I don't like to see that it's broken, we do have obviously an IHS target up here in the 282 area, and then a target at a retest of the all-time high at 294, and this trend line would make that kind of a problem. So I'm sort of hoping that breaks. On the hourly chart, no current divergence, nothing really in the way of retesting this high here at 253, and then proceeding higher towards the IHS target. On Ethereum, obviously we made the IHS target a while ago. I called both of these as they were forming in May, and I'm thinking we're forming a bull flag here and probably going back into retest the high. We've got back over all the resistance. We've got back over the 50 DMA. We've got back over the daily middle band. I'm leaning, it hasn't made it back over declining resistance here, but once it gets past that, I'm thinking retest the all-time high at 49.55. On the hourly chart, we've again had an RSI 14 sell signal fixed for a while, and we've broken over this declining resistance. This is the same thing I was looking at on Bitcoin, very similar setup, saying really the next obvious target is to retest the all-time high. The same goes for here. So I'm leaning towards seeing that retest. Could see a bit of a retrace first, but chances are we're going to see that retest afterwards, and we're going to see it go higher. Do I have a higher target? Yes, I do. And that's because, I don't know if I mentioned this on Wednesday. I found it early last week, I think, but it might have been after Wednesday. We have a nice rising channel here on Bitcoin. And we've broken up, we've retested the high, but actually the target trend line for that channel is up here now. Don't know if we're going to make that a move immediately, but I've got that really at about the 137 to 140k area. This is something I was very much hoping to see form, because it gives us structure for this move up, which I'm thinking has a pretty decent chance of topping out in December. December being here on this chart, so this line here. So I was saying to someone that I was thinking we could go up to a maximum of 150 in December. That's not a bad match with this channel. We will see how that goes. That could be a decent match with this trend line here, which of course is going to be crossing that trend line about then. We will see. But I'm liking it. Short term, I'm not seeing any particular reason to think these are about to turn around. We shall see. All right, great. In that case, until next week, everyone take care, and I'll catch you guys again on Wednesday.